Now, you already know, this ain't no ordinary travel podcast. This is the place where stories stretch across oceans.
Day to aboard the Queen Mary's soft sway, washing old tension, sending it away. So deep exhaustion from a life I once knew. Cunard, the antidote, calming and true. A lightness in my chest, years felt like dust, my spirit expanding, renewed by deep trust. Skip the grand lunch for quite small desire, fish and chips calling, setting my soul afire. The old world chomp up, dim light brass glow, watching the ocean where secrets softly flow. Then California smiles, Richard and Debra came, kindred spirits whispering, calling out my name. Oh, connection ain't always about the skin, it's a vibration of spirit from deep within. Slow elegance moving, jazz beneath the stars, healing old wounds, mending broken scars. No more waiting to live, no postponing the dance. This sacred journey, a second sweet chance.
Day 2 aboard the Queen Mary 2, and baby, let me tell you, by then the ocean had rocked me just enough to loosen whatever tension I hadn't packed away. That soul-deep exhaustion from old Co, the one that had me barely pulling back the covers most mornings. Cunard was truly the antidote. Her calm embrace, the rhythmic sway. It was a balm to a spirit that had been wrung dry. I skipped lunch that day, opting instead for a slow stroll down to the ship's pub. Something about fish and chips with a cold pint felt like just what the ancestors ordered. The pub had that old world charm, a little dark wood, gleaming brass, and a whole lot of cozy. The rich scent of malt and hops hung in the air, a comforting counterpoint to the salt of the sea. I settled in, minding my own business, watching the gentle sway of the ship through the brass-rimmed portholes. When in walked this California couple, Richard and Debra, outgoing in that West Coast way. They struck up a conversation like we'd known each other since the 70s. We clicked. Turns out they were globe-trotting veterans on a months-long voyage around the world. Seasoned, spirited, and full of stories that made me sit up straighter. They hadn't just seen the world, they'd let it change them. We got to talking about why they chose Cunard. "You don't book Cunard for the DJ and daiquiris," Richard said with a chuckle. "You come for the calm, for the conversation, for the class." And wasn't he right? This wasn't your party till you drop cruise. This was slow elegance. It was jazz and moonlight, novels and nods from strangers who appreciated silence as much as stories. We laughed about the difference between this and those Caribbean cruises with 20 cousins, matching t-shirts, and somebody always losing their flip-flop. Been there, done that. Loved it. But this was something else. Something sacred. I scanned the room and noticed something I already knew. There weren't many folks on board who looked like me. Maybe 20 or 30 visible minorities out of thousands. But connection ain't always about complexion. It's about vibration. Richard had been a literature professor. Debra, a retired social worker, turned painter. And they were still curious, still kind, still hungry for life. It reminded me, age ain't nothing but seasoning. The spirit stays tender when you keep feeding it wonder. We talked until the pub grew quiet and our drinks went warm. They left me with something more than good company. They left me with a vision of how I want to grow, curious, creative, and unbothered by convention. Now, let me tell you this. Everything was going smooth as velvet pudding on that crossing. Nights were lullabies, set to the hum of the Atlantic, and I hadn't slept that good in years. The gentle rocking, the quiet hum of the engines, it was truly the deep rest my soul had craved for so long. But life's always got a plot twist tucked in its back pocket. It was around 2 a.m., dead quiet, me wrapped in a good dream, when the ship-wide alarm screamed like the Holy Ghost was trying to snatch us up out of bed. My heart beating like a marching band at homecoming. This wasn't a drill. A voice crackled over the intercom. We were diverting course. Somebody on board needed an emergency medical evacuation. Just like that, we were turning around, heading back toward Canadian waters. Nova Scotia was the closest lifeline. I flicked on the little navigation screen in my cabin, and sure enough, the ship was looping back like we'd forgotten something. And baby, we had a man's life. The sea that had rocked me into serenity now pulsed with urgency. I sat on the edge of my bed, whispering prayers for a man I didn't know, but suddenly felt tethered to. That's what happens out on the ocean. When you're all floating in the middle of nowhere, everybody becomes kin. By sunrise, the whispers had spread. The gentleman had suffered a major heart attack. The ship's medical team had done all they could. Now it was time for a helicopter to lift him from sea to safety. I stepped out onto the deck, joining strangers who felt like family in that moment. The air was crisp and biting as I stepped onto the deck, our breaths misting in the cold. The sea spray, even through my layers, felt like tiny needles on my skin, and then we heard it. The thump, thump, thump of a rescue chopper cutting through the morning fog, its powerful downdraft churning the icy waters below, a blinding flash of light as it hovered over us. We held our collective breath as a basket descended, then rose again with that man suspended in hope. And when the helicopter disappeared into the sky, every soul exhaled at once. What I didn't expect was the realization that we'd passed over the very waters where the Titanic met her end. The symbolism slapped me awake. I stood still and whispered a prayer, not just for that man, but for every soul who'd ever been swallowed by these waves, for every goodbye never spoken, for every journey never completed. That morning shifted something in me. We go through life thinking we have time. That joy, healing, love, they'll be waiting on the next stop. But life, baby, life moves. One breath, one beat, one decision. That's all it takes to change everything. So I made a vow right then. No more waiting. No more postponing the dance. Tomorrow ain't promised. This extraordinary detour, this brush with the raw power of the ocean and the stark reminder of human vulnerability, confirmed that my grand escape was not just a vacation, but a radical act of self-preservation and transformation. Now listen, there's a rhythm to life at sea, and once you catch it, it hums through your bones like a soft jazz melody at dusk. Each morning, I'd open the door to my balcony like it was a sacred ritual. Just me, the breeze, and the endless blue horizon, whispering secrets only the ocean knows. I'd sit with my journal, scribbling fragments of dreams and truths as the ship rocked me into reflection. Let me tell you about tea time on the Queen Mary 2. That was an event. Every afternoon, like clockwork, we were summoned by silver trays and white-gloved servers to an experience fit for royalty. Towering stands of delicate cucumber sandwiches, buttery scones, and sinful little pastries I still dream about. It was elegance on a plate. This was often where I'd join Richard and Debra, and through them, I found my tribe on board. One particular day, though, I got bold, greedy even, and went in for one too many hazelnut tarts. Lord, within minutes I was lightheaded, sweating like I'd run a marathon. and on the verge of passing out right there in the Queen's finest tea salon. The rich sweetness, the sheer indulgence, it overwhelmed me. I had to excuse myself quick and lie down like a woman who just danced too hard at a juke joint. That nap saved my life, and so did the reminder that joy, even in sweet form, needs moderation. I woke up grateful, humble, and ready to carry on. That night, I joined my newfound tribe for dinner under the stars, balance slowly returning to my body and my spirit. This tribe, Michelle from Australia, had energy that could power a lighthouse, bright, wild, and impossible to ignore. Then there were the British siblings, traveling not just for fun, but to heal. They'd lost their sister-in-law during this very voyage, and this trip became a pilgrimage of grief and grace. The brother, he was carrying her ashes back across the Atlantic. Every meal with him felt like church, a quiet kind where hearts opened and sorrow softened. His sisters flanked him with warmth and wit, determined to help him carry that sorrow with dignity. And Frank was the philosopher of the group, looked like he walked out of a BBC drama, tweed coat, thoughtful eyes, and a voice like slow rain. He spoke of seasons in life, of letting go with love, of dancing while the music's still playing. I hung on every word. That night, full of scotch, stories, and soul, I stepped out onto the deck and offered the ocean my 7 pennies, a quiet ritual I do for gratitude and intention. Each coin held a wish, each splash a release. The days that followed felt like velvet. Meals were long and laughter rich. I stopped trying to fill the time and started letting the time fill me. Not every moment had to be an adventure. Some just needed presence. Sure, I hit up the shows and shops like any self-respecting cruiser, but my deepest joy came in the stillness. On that open deck, alone with the stars and my heartbeat, feeling the cool, crisp air against my face, I remembered parts of myself I had misplaced. We're taught to chase, to hustle, to produce. But the ocean reminded me some things are only found in the pause. I sat in that silence until it spoke to me. And what did it say? That I was enough, that I didn't have to earn every breath with effort, that beauty, love, and wisdom aren't goals. They're companions if you slow down enough to notice them. I also leaned all the way in. I tried the computer classes even though I cursed under my breath the whole time. I hit the dance lessons, wobbled through bingo, even flirted with the wine tastings. Just a sip, y'all, just a sip. I made friends I never expected. Carol from Ohio, 82 and fierce in her yoga leggings, whipped me into shape more than any instructor. We played shuffleboard like it was the Olympic trials. I lost, but I laughed like I'd won. Still, I made time for the quiet too. Movie nights, journaling in the library, long sunsets where I didn't say a word. Because growth don't just come from the loud moments. Sometimes it whispers in the stillness. Too soon we neared the shores of England. The buzz of arrival filled the halls, but I walked slower, held longer, smiled wider. I was different now. This crossing hadn't just taken me across the Atlantic. It had carried me back to myself. When we docked in Southampton, I didn't recognize myself. Not because I had changed, but because I had returned to something I hadn't been in a while. Grounded, lit up, ready, my spirit felt lighter, my vision clearer. The quiet elegance of Cunard had reset my soul, giving me the space to truly breathe after years of holding my breath. This experience, a true luxury of the spirit, confirmed that sometimes the greatest leaps of faith are taken in stillness. And baby, the Mediterranean was calling. This season, you've seen Auntie Rae embark on a journey that started with a single step onto a grand ship, but it quickly became a transformation, a shedding of old skin, a rediscovery of self. I learned that kindness travels far, that grace is a choice, and that sometimes the greatest adventures aren't on the map, but in the quiet whispers of your own heart. These experiences, these detours, they were forging a resilience, a clarity that would serve me in ways I couldn't yet imagine. preparing me for future challenges and the eventual search for a new home beyond these shores. What came next? The vibrant, unapologetic chaos of Carnival, the raw beauty of European towns I would only glimpse, and the continued dance with destiny across the pond. A transition from queen to backyard cookout. Indeed. Stay with me, darlings, because the next chapter, it's just getting started.
Nights were lullabies on the Atlantic soft hum, the deepest of slumber. Finally it come, then 2 a.m. screams, a jarring sudden fright, a ship-wide alarm piercing through the night, diverting our course, a life hanging in the air. Nova Scotia calling, a silent whispered prayer. The sea of serenity now pulse with deep demand. Out in the nowhere, all of us were kin. Chopper at dawn, a thumping in the mist, a basket ascending, a life bravely kissed. Then silence descended, a collective soft sigh, as a helicopter faded into the vast sky. Oh, connection ain't always about the skin. It's a vibration of spirit from deep within. Slow elegance moving, jazz beneath the stars, healing old wounds, mending broken scars. No more waiting to live, no postponing the dance. This sacred journey, a second sweet chance. Every morning on my balcony, a sacred new start. Ocean whispering secrets deep inside my heart. Tea time, elegant scones and laughter, sweet sound. With Richard and Debra, my kindred tribe I'd found. Hazelnut tarts, a lesson learned that day. Even sweet joy needs balance along the winding way. Frank, the wise philosopher, speaking of life's slow grace, dancing while the music plays in this beautiful space. 7 pennies offered, gratitude on the tide, letting the time fill me, nowhere left to hide. In the stillness, ocean spoke a truth so clear. You are enough, darling, banish every fear. This crossing carried me across the wide sea, but most of all it carried me back to me.